Hi, I'm Emma Carter, and this is the story of how I poured my heart and soul into a company I didn't even name, only to be told I'd never be good enough to lead it. But 5 years later, I came back holding everything they thought was theirs. This is a tale of betrayal, resilience, and reclaiming what's rightfully yours. Stick with me because by the end, you might just see a piece of yourself in this journey. Let's rewind to where it all began. Our family business, Carter and Sons Logistics. Picture a dusty little warehouse, two beat-up trucks parked out front, and a rotary phone that barely rang. That's how my grandfather kicked things off after the war, hustling his way from nothing into something. My father took that spark and fanned it into a flame with his relentless work ethic. By the time I was in high school, we weren't just a local outfit anymore. We were moving goods for warehouses and small retailers across the region. A modest but steady operation. From the outside, it was the American dream, a family success story etched in grease and grit. But inside those walls, it was a different picture. It was a kingdom, and it was built for my brother Noah. Noah was the eldest, the golden boy with a grin that could charm anyone. Dad always said he had business in his blood, just like Grandpa. He was the guy who'd slap backs and shake hands, always knowing the right thing to say in a room full of suits. Me? I was the quiet one, the planner. While Noah was out playing golf with potential partners, I was holed up late at night, hunched over spreadsheets, tweaking route optimization models until my eyes burned. I didn't mind it. I loved it, actually. Numbers made sense to me in a way people sometimes didn't. When I graduated with a dual degree in supply chain management and information systems, I came back home with big dreams. Not to take over, but to build something better. I wanted Carter and Sons to be smarter, faster, leaner, a company that could stand tall in a changing world. Dad didn't get it at first. Why fix something that isn't broken? He'd grumble whenever I pitched automated systems or data analytics tools, but he didn't shut me down completely. He gave me a quiet desk in the back corner of the office and a little room to experiment. That was enough for me. And you know what? Those experiments paid off. In my first year, I reworked our routing systems and slashed costs by 18%. Year 2, I dragged us into the digital age, swapped out paper logs and whiteboards for cloud-based fleet tracking. By year 4, we'd landed contracts with two national retailers. 10 years in, we'd grown from a $3 million operation to a $60 million logistics powerhouse. I'd sit there sometimes, looking at the numbers, feeling this quiet pride swell up inside me. I thought, this is it. This is what I was meant to do. But no matter how much we grew, no matter how many late nights I put in or problems I solved, I never stopped being the helper. I was the girl behind the curtain, making the magic happen while Noah got to take the bow. He'd left for a while, you see, tried to start his own venture, some flashy startup that crashed and burned. When he came back, the company was too big to ignore, and they welcomed him like a prodigal son. I still remember that day. Dad hugging him in the middle of the office, everyone clapping, and just like that, he got an office and a title. Vice President of Business Development. I bit my tongue. Maybe he'd changed, I told myself. Maybe he'd earned it this time. He hadn't. Noah slid right back into his old ways, taking credit for deals I'd closed, talking over me in meetings, tossing out little jabs like, Emma's great with numbers, but leadership? That's not her thing. I'd sit there, jaw tight, telling myself the work would speak for itself. I was wrong. The real gut punch came on a quiet Saturday night, Dad's 60th birthday. We were at the old family restaurant, the one with red leather booths and a waiter who'd known us since I was 6. It was just family and a few close business friends. The air thick with the smell of steak and nostalgia. Dad had been hinting at a big announcement all week, and I had this flicker of hope. Maybe a shared title, or at least a nod to everything I'd done. When dessert hit the table, he stood up, tapped his glass, and started talking about legacy. How Carter and Sons had weathered storms, grown through grit, become a true success. I smiled, waiting. Then, he said it. It's time to pass the torch to the next generation, and there's no one better suited to lead us into the future than Noah. My heart stopped. From this day forward, he went on. Noah will step in as CEO. I'll stay on as chairman, but the future belongs to my son. Not a word about me. Nothing. I stared at my untouched cake, fork frozen in my hand. Around the table, Noah smirked. My aunt nodded like it was obvious. Mom stayed silent as always. Then Dad turned to me. "Emma," he said, "you'll still have your role in operations. But leadership, it's not really your strength. You're a workhorse, reliable, but not a visionary." And then the line that seared itself into my brain. "You'll never be good enough to run this company." The room went quiet. No one spoke. I stood up slowly, folded my napkin, set it on the table, and gave a soft nod. "Thanks for the clarity," I said, my voice steady even though I was breaking inside. Then I walked out. No yelling, no tears, just me and the cold night air. That moment wasn't just a betrayal. It was a wake-up call. My whole life I'd thought if I worked hard enough, proved myself enough, they'd see me. But they wouldn't. Noah didn't earn his crown. He was born with it. I could have tripled the company's value again, and it still wouldn't have mattered. Not to Dad, not to anyone who saw me as just the help. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream or call anyone to vent. I drove home in silence, poured a glass of wine, and sat in my dark living room with my laptop glowing in front of me. That Carter and Sons logo stared back at me. A logo I'd helped design, a brand I'd poured a decade into. I opened a new folder and named it Project Phoenix. That night, something shifted. I wasn't going to beg for their approval anymore. I was going to rise from the ashes they'd left me in. The next morning, I went back to the office one last time. Not for revenge, not yet. I needed ammunition. I moved quietly, backing up files I had every right to take, financial reports I'd written, vendor contacts I'd earned, photos of whiteboards covered in my blueprints. 2 days later, I left a short letter on Dad's desk. "Thank you for the opportunity. I wish the company continued success." That was it. Dad didn't reply. Noah sent a one-line email. "Best of luck out there." I don't think he even meant it. They thought I'd fade away, another quiet exit from someone they'd never really seen. But I wasn't unarmed. Over the years, I'd built something they couldn't take away. Trust. Not because of my last name, but because I was the one who showed up when shipments were late, who picked up the phone at midnight when a client panicked, who solved problems no one else would touch. So when I started making calls, the responses floored me. "Wait, you're leaving? Are you starting something new?" "Emma, if you're building something, we want in." One client became 3, then 5. Within a month, I had 12 verbal commitments from companies who'd grown tired of being just another number to Carter and Sons. They missed the care I'd given them, the care no one else bothered with. I filed the paperwork for True North Freight Systems. The name meant something to me. I didn't want another Carter and whatever. I wanted something that pointed forward, a compass for where I was going. I started small, just me, a leased office above a coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso, and a whiteboard covered in scribbled ideas. No team, no Carter name, no money. I cashed out my savings, sold my car, took out a small business loan. I partnered with a software developer I'd worked with before and started building a logistics platform. Smarter, more adaptive, everything I'd dreamed of at Carter and Sons but couldn't fully unleash because Dad thought it was too complicated. Those first 6 months were brutal. I worked 16-hour days, fueled by coffee and stubbornness. I took every meeting, cold-called suppliers until my voice gave out, stood in rooms full of skeptical men who smirked like I'd crumble without a family legacy to prop me up. "You don't look like someone who runs a freight company," one exec said, his tone dripping with condescension. I smiled back. "That's funny because I built one. Every doubt, every sideways glance, it didn't break me. It fueled me. By the end of year 1, we broke even. Year 2, we turned a profit. Year 3, we landed a contract with a national e-commerce brand, one Noah had chased and lost years before. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about proving something to myself. I didn't need their permission or their legacy to succeed. I could stand on my own. But success doesn't stay quiet forever. Around year 4, True North started popping up on industry radar. People noticed our growth, how we were pulling clients who'd once been Carter and Sons loyalists. Word spread. Clients loved our speed, our transparency, the cutting-edge tracking system I'd poured my heart into. Even our drivers started talking about how we treated them like people, not pawns. And then, one day, my phone rang. It was Noah. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice all casual charm, like we were old pals. "Been hearing a lot about your company. Congrats on the growth." I paused, letting the silence hang. "Thanks, Noah. Didn't expect to hear from you." "Yeah. Well, Dad and I were thinking, maybe it's time we reconnect. Grab coffee sometime?" I smiled, not because I missed them, but because I could hear it, the edge of unease beneath his words. They saw the storm coming and they had no idea how to brace for it. I didn't need coffee. I needed patience, because I was about to do something bigger than just succeed. I was going to show them what it feels like to be underestimated. 4 years had passed since that birthday dinner, since I'd walked away with nothing but my skills, my contacts, and the sting of being told I'd never be enough. Now, I had momentum, something they hadn't counted on. True North wasn't just surviving, we were thriving. Every dollar we made we'd earned from scratch. No Carter money, no handouts. That call from Noah wasn't curiosity. It was fear dressed up as friendliness. "We've been thinking of expanding west," he said, trying to sound offhand. "Could be a chance to collaborate." I didn't take the bait. "We're already there," I said coolly. "But thanks for the offer." "Ho ho," he faltered. "Well, good for you." He didn't know it, but while he was spinning expansion plans and buzzwords for the board, I was quietly gathering power. Logistics is a game of relationships, and I'd spent years nurturing mine with real trust, trust that turned into loyalty. Over the past 2 years, several Carter and Sons clients had jumped ship to True North. Not because I begged, not out of spite, but because they wanted what I offered. And some of those clients, they were big names. Then came the whisper that changed everything. Carter and Sons had tied themselves to Weston Holdings, a massive publicly traded company, through a strategic partnership. It was supposed to stabilize them, open new markets, bring in cash. But Weston was floundering, and they were looking to offload underperforming assets, including Carter and Sons. I heard it from a mutual connection, someone who'd worked with Noah but now rode with me. "They think Weston's restructuring," he said, leaning against my office door. "Carter and Sons is on the block." I didn't know what to do with that at first. Step back into the world that had chewed me up and spit me out? But then I saw Dad's face in my mind, that proud grin as he handed Noah the keys, the way he'd called me reliable but not a leader. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. Leadership isn't a title you're given. It's what you do in the shadows, the trust you build, the grit you show when no one's watching. So I made calls. Discreet ones, then bolder ones. A week later, I sat in a glass-walled conference room with Weston Holdings' executive board. Navy suit, no flash, just me and a proposal. "We'd like to acquire Carter and Sons in full," I said, sliding the portfolio across the table. "We'll absorb their debt, keep all contracts, offer retention bonuses for key staff." An exec raised an eyebrow. "No complications with your history?" I smiled faintly. "My history's why this'll work." An hour of haggling later, we had a deal in principle. I didn't shout it from the rooftops. I let the ink dry, let the press releases simmer, let the board break the news to Dad and Noah. Then, on a rainy Thursday morning, I got the email. "Transaction closed. Welcome to the team." I stared at it, calm, washing over me. The girl they'd said wasn't good enough had just bought the company that cast her aside. They never saw me coming. The next morning, I walked into Carter and Sons' headquarters after 5 years away. Same walls, same coffee machine humming in the corner, same crooked photo of Dad shaking the mayor's hand in the lobby. The receptionist blinked twice. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, smiling. "Could you let Mr. Carter know his new boss would like a word?" Her jaw twitched, but she picked up the phone. I stood there, steady, hands loose, because the best part was still ahead. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like a dream. I'd taken it hundreds of times before. Coffee in one hand, to-do list in the other, always the fixer slipping in and out. Today, I wasn't fixing anything. I was claiming what I'd earned. The doors opened with that familiar chime, and I stepped into a hallway I could have navigated blind. Same carpet, same flickering light no one ever fixed. But the air, it was different now. I walked into the executive conference room, and there they were. Dad, Noah, two board members who'd once ignored me, and the company lawyer, his smile fading fast. Dad stood, flustered. "Emma, what is this? Why didn't anyone tell me you were coming?" I set my bag down at the head of the table and sat. No hesitation, no permission needed. "We've got things to discuss," I said evenly. "Better face to face." Noah scoffed. "What, you're a consultant now, here to nitpick the company you ditched?" I met his eyes. "No, Noah, I'm your boss." The room went dead silent, like the air itself held its breath. Dad paled. "What are you talking about?" I slid the acquisition agreement across the table. Signed, sealed, undeniable. Weston Holdings sold their logistics assets, including Carter and Sons. Closed yesterday. True North Freight Systems is the parent company now. Dad's hands shook as he lifted the paper. "You bought us?" "Yes," I said. "Every truck, every contract, every inch of this place." Noah shot up. "You're lying. This is a joke. You don't have that kind of power." "Stop underestimating me," I said, voice still calm. "That mistake already cost you everything." He glared at Dad, but Dad just stared at the document, lost. "5 years ago," I said, "you told me I'd never be good enough to run this company. So I left. I built something real. While you chased deals and polished your image, I was out there proving what leadership actually looks like. You didn't just give me a reason to leave. You gave me the drive to become unstoppable." Noah slumped back, rattled. "So what, revenge?" I shook my head. "No. Order. Carter and Sons integrates into True North starting now. Leadership changes, reviews, reassignments. I'm not here to burn it down. I'm here to build it right." Dad's voice came low, rough. "You waited all this time to humiliate us." I looked him in the eye. "No, Dad, I waited to do it right. You taught me patience, strategy. You just didn't think I'd use it like this." He sank into his chair, speechless. I turned to Noah. "You report to me now. If that's an issue, there's the door." His jaw tightened. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said softly. "I always was. You just couldn't see past your own entitlement." There it was, the truth, loud and clear in the room where I'd once been silenced. Now, I owned it. After that meeting, I walked the halls I'd once haunted with spreadsheets and coffee stains. Eyes followed me, wide, whispering, unsure. I stopped at my old office, the one they'd given to Noah. Same chair, same skyline view. I didn't feel bitter. I felt ready to lead, to heal, to show them what I could do. Taking over wasn't the victory people thought. Sure, there were nods from board members who'd once snubbed me, headlines calling me a rising freight star, but inside it was tense. Some feared I'd turn into Noah, petty, power-hungry. They didn't know me. My first day as CEO, I didn't strut in with a speech. I sent an email. "Meet me in the warehouse, 8:30 a.m. No chairs, no suits, no filters. Everyone showed, drivers, accountants, managers." I stepped onto a crate and spoke. "I know this is a shock. I know you've got questions, maybe loyalties to the old guard. That's fine. But I didn't come to destroy this place. I came to save it. Carter and Sons has been limping. Bloated costs, bad systems, high turnover. You felt it, but you stayed. That tells me you care. We're building on innovation, integrity, respect. We'll earn trust with results, not words. If you're in, we'll rise together." Silence. Then a clap, then more, steady, real. That was enough. I followed through, audited every department, met every team leader, restored cut benefits, rewrote bonuses, reopened the innovation lab Dad had axed. One day, I found an old note I'd scribbled. If they gave me a chance, I could triple efficiency in 18 months. I smiled. I didn't need their chance anymore. Noah floundered under me, clinging to his role until he couldn't. Staff stopped running to him. Clients asked for me. He left after 9 months, no fanfare, just a box and a quiet exit. Dad faded too, showed up less, looked smaller each time. Once, he said, "You've changed." "No," I replied. "You never saw me." He nodded and left. That was it. A month in, I landed our biggest client ever. $22 million a year, a deal Noah couldn't snag. The client's CEO said, "We like your quiet strength, Emma. It's rare." That hit me. I never had to shout. I just had to stop waiting. Years passed. Carter and Sons didn't just recover. It transformed. We rolled out AI routing, went international, won sustainability awards. The company that once dismissed me now led the pack, and I led it, not with noise, but with purpose. True North thrived too, a sister empire under my vision. Last week, I keynoted a logistics summit. The future is female. 5 years ago, I couldn't get a seat at the table. Now I was teaching leadership. I told them I was called too quiet, too technical. But the quiet ones see everything. We don't just take power, we transform it. The applause was for every underestimated soul out there. After, a woman approached me, eyes sharp but nervous. "My family's giving our business to my brother. I've done everything right, but it's his." I smiled. "Build your own. Then come back and buy theirs." Sometimes life doesn't apologize, but recognition, the look in their eyes when they see what they lost, that's enough. I don't hate Dad or envy Noah. I wish they'd believed in me. But if they had, I might not be who I am. A builder, a leader, a woman who turned pain into power. So if you're wondering if it's too late to reclaim what's yours, it's not. Start quiet, start small, but start. One day, they'll look up and you'll be the one calling the shots. If this hit home, please like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment. Tell me about a time you were underestimated and how you rose above it. Your stories fuel this community. Let's keep pushing forward together. Thanks for being here.